Hi, I'm Vicky. Today we're going to look at setting up your mountain bike tyre for tubeless. A lot of people do that these days. I really like doing it because for a number of reasons. Firstly, the sealant seals up a lot of little holes that you might get from thorns and so on, so it reduces your amount of punctures. But also you can run your tyres at a lower pressure, which gives you more grip. The tyres mould more and you're able to use the full range of knobbles across the ground, so it's better for grip. To do this, I am using stands simply because I like it, nothing else. I've got sealant, rim tape, tubeless valves, tyre levers naturally, park tools which I like, and the granite end caps. These are great for afterwards because you can use the end cap, they've got a hole in them so you can actually remove the valve core. I tend to like decanting my tubeless sealant into a small bottle and filling up through the valve core. It can mean that you end up with a sticky inner core and you might need to replace it, but generally I find it's a easier way to do it. So first thing we're going to do is remove the tyre. So you can take the air out of the old tyre. So with all the air out of your tyre, you can now go about removing that. I have done another video on tyre removal, but basically you always want to start opposite the valve. First thing you need to do is break the seal, because when we inflate tyres, they become attached to the rim simply by pressure and wear and so on, and if you squeeze them away from the rim like that, you want to start opposite the rim and just stick the lever in underneath, pull it round and hold it on to a spoke. Go along to the next spoke that's closest to you and do the same. Some tyre rim combos are harder than others. This one actually is really good. This is a Magic Mary, but it's a case of getting used to doing it. Again there. And the reason we use 3 is exactly that when you've got the third one in, your middle one drops out, you can now very easily run your hand all the way around the rim. You then simply remove your inner tube, remembering to undo the lock nut on the valve there so that you can take it out. I keep those because they're useful as spares. Then we're going to take the whole of the tyre off. At this point it's really important to remember that when you go to put your tyre back on, tyres are directional, so you want to look for the arrow on the tyre and make sure that it's going to go back on the same way and go in the correct direction. Now this is a WTB tubeless ready rim, which means that actually it's already had the lining tape put in. So as the wheel that I want to set up has already got tubeless rim tape on it, I'm going to just show you the technique with an alternative rim. This one isn't tubeless ready. You do need to check when you're setting up tubeless. You can do ghetto tubeless with rims and tyres that aren't set up for it, but you're making your life a whole lot more difficult. Mostly these days rims will come tubeless ready, but you can't guarantee it, so just check. So the first thing we want to do is locate the valve in the rim. So there it is. Now if you are resealing a rim or redoing your rim tape, you want to make sure that it really is a clean surface that you're working on so that you give your tape the best chance to stick. So we take the rim tape and got the valve hole there. what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my tape a little bit beyond it, so that in fact we overlap over the valve. So to put it on, you really want to get it stuck in place, and you want to take a bit at a time and stretch it. Can you see the tension that that's then under? So with one hand you're pushing it down, with one thumb you're gluing it into place, and with the other you're pulling it. And there will be some bubbles, but the more you stretch it in place, like so, the more you remove. There we go. So hopefully you can see that's going on, and actually that tape is almost becoming like fabric, and we're just sticking it down like that, so we can get a really nice seal. Can you see? Yeah. So just pull it round under tension and push it down, either with your forefinger or your thumb. There we go. And you keep going round. And then just overlap again. Once you get to the start, you just want to overlap over the valve, because obviously that's going to be the one point where there is going to be a hole, and you just want to make sure that no air can escape through that. So then just push it down. So we've now got a taped rim. Where the valve goes, I just use a pick to puncture a hole through. The reason I'm using a pick is obviously it's quite narrow, and it's, as you put the valve through, it's going to expand the hole. In fact, I will be checking with this rim that is already taped. The one thing that's concerning me is whether that hole is actually too large. So what I may do is just do an extra layer of seal. Or I may, if it doesn't seal properly, I'll know that it's likely to be leaking from there, because checking round the rest of the rim, there aren't any holes. When I've had problems with tubeless setup before, often it's been that a spoke is slightly loose or something, and that's pierced a hole in the rim, in the tape. So it's just worth. We're now ready to put the valve in and put the tyre back on and set up the tubeless setup. So the first thing we need to do is put the valve in place. Just take the lock nut off, push it through, push it right in, and then use the lock nut to pull it in place. You want to make sure that no air can escape here by the valve. So I'm really pulling that down tight and doing it up. The shape of the valve, the little rubber on the valve, is a cone, so that it will pull in and sit nicely. So this is a front wheel. I want the brake on the left. The direction going forwards is that way. So we take our tyre and just checking for the direction. The rotation is there, the arrow going that way. So we put it in, get one side on. Now my particular favourite way of doing a tubeless setup is I get the tyre on and get it in place, get it sitting, and then I remove the core and put it on and put the sealant in. Other people tend to do it when, at this stage, when they're putting the tyre on. That's fine, as long as you know that your tyre is going to sit properly. So some people like to put sealant in at this point when you've got a bag in the tyre before it goes on properly. The reason I don't particularly like doing it that way is because if you don't know that your tyre is going to sit properly, you've then got a lot of sealant hanging around, being quite messy while you're trying to set your tyre in place. So just finish off putting this on. The way you get the tyre in place is to work opposite the valve, come round evenly, and then using your hands, you can sometimes stretch it as well. So, sorry, I know it's probably not very good videoing, you won't be able to see anything. So just rolling it over like that and get it on. Right, so first thing I'm going to do is inflate this tyre and check that it sits properly on the rim. So take my pump, and okay, so the tyre isn't inflating onto the rim. This could be for a number of reasons. Could be because there's a problem with the rim tape, but more likely I just can't get enough volume of air in quickly to get it to actually explode and sit in place. So what I'm going to do is use a can, an air shot, which I've pumped up to 120 psi, and I'm just going to release that air into the rim. And hopefully that's going to get it to sit in place. If at the moment I'm just doing that by literally attaching this valve in the normal way, if that still doesn't work, I've got a second option, which is to put this attachment on the end of the air shot, take the valve core out, and then I'll get an even faster, greater volume of air straight in. So we'll try it this way first of all. So that's still not sitting properly in place. So this is where we've got another technique that we can use. As it's Easter, I've got a mug with rabbits on. So what I'm going to do is we take basically a really intense mixture of washing up liquid, not much water. You want it to be nice and foamy like that. Literally run this round the inside of the tyre, and what that's going to do is it's just going to help that tyre move back into place. This tyre has been previously set up with a tube in it. It's been run like that, it's not a clean setup. So there's going to be a certain amount of gunk and residue in there that might be what's stopping the tyre itself moving across into place on the rim. So we just run that all the way around quite liberally inside. Again, this is why I prefer to do it like this without having any sealant in. You can imagine if that rim was full of sealant, it would be going everywhere by now. Okay, so done both sides. So we now move that out of the way. Now reattach my valve and my pump. I'm going to line my tyre down, give it the best chance, and then just really pump and see if that's going to get enough air in. Sometimes you do just get tyre and rim and tyre combinations that are a pain. So, and I think we might have one of them here. So let's just encourage it into place. In workshop, we have been known to end up with several of us holding the rim and just really encouraging it into place as you put the air in. I can see it beginning to move. Yeah, I think that's beginning to go. What I'm going to do is re-inflate the air shot and use that again to fill it up. So to reinflate the air shot, you literally set it to the valve to closed. At this point I'm not thinking it's a problem with the rim tape, I'm literally just thinking that I can't get the tyre to sit in place. If it was a problem with the rim tape, then the tyre would sit in place and but then would slowly go down. So pump this air shot up. This is real life mechanics. This is what it's like. Don't ever worry if things don't go to plan or don't go like they do on videos, because that's not life. The whole joy of mechanics is problem solving, basically, when you don't think it's going to work and you manage to make it work. Right, so do that valve up. Now, as I explained earlier, I'm going to remove the inside of the valve. I want to get as much air in as quickly as I can. So I'm going to use one of my little granite end caps. Might as well show you how that works as well. So that just sits on there, and you just undo the valve like so. It comes out. Alright, so we now have an empty valve. I've put the attachment onto there, and then screw that into place. Then just simply, that didn't work, did it? Simply, there we are. That's what I wanted to hear. Brilliant. So now, obviously when I remove this, the air is going to come right out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clean around. I'm going to check whether the tyre is properly seated on the rim. So it's going to be quite hard to see, but around the rim there is a little line of rubber which you want to have parallel with the rim itself. Checking on both sides. Yep, that's done. So now I know that that tyre is sitting properly. I'm going to remove my air shot, which is going to let the tyre out, the air out very rapidly. There we go. And now we are pretty much done. I've decanted some of the stand sealant into this little pot. Give it a shake to make sure it's working properly, make sure it's activated properly. Pull the lid off, and then literally take the sealant like so and just let it pour in. A whole bottle is enough for a 27.5 wheel. These have got quite large tyres on them, but I still think a whole bottle is going to be fine. So take that off, replace my valve core, because I'm hoping now that the tyre has sat properly on the rim, I should just be able to inflate it normally. So put that out of the way, move that, and now just attach my pump. So again, I'm going to lie it down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to inflate it to about 50 psi. Normally you'd be running it, well, I tend to run them at 20 psi, but between 20 and 30 depending on your weight and size, and obviously the conditions you're riding in. Some people maybe even less. But when the first 24 hours, 48 hours of having a tubeless setup, I tend to leave it on a really high PSI so that it's got as much encouragement as possible to stay in place, on the rim, inflated. And that's also the time that you want to just keep an eye on it and see if you've got any slow leaks anywhere. So right, that's 30. Right, that's 40, so I think that'll do for now. So remove that, do the valve up, and now you just want to really rotate that wheel in all these ways. Make sure that the sealant is fully coating the inside. So that's done. I'll just make sure the valve is done up properly, and then, as I say, I really like these granite end caps. Put it on like that, and then hopefully tomorrow this tubeless setup will be good to go.